Welcome to the Catherine Vandome and Me podcast.
Hashtag hosts and the HQFM Quiz and Bingo software are proud to sponsor the Catherine Vandome and Me podcast. With HQFM Quiz and Bingo software, you can use this interactive quiz software at any venue. All you need is an internet connection. Go to hashtagquiz.co.uk for your free trial today.
Hello and welcome to Catherine Vandome and Me. And today I'm joined by a very talented guest who is an osteopath, and she also works at the Perrin Clinic in Prestwich, Manchester, performing the Perrin Technique for Dr. Raymond Perrin, which is a specialised treatment for ME. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce the wonderful Antoinette Atuah. Have I pronounced that correctly, Antoinette?
You have. You pronounced it brilliantly. Thank you, Cathy. That's such a nice introduction. Thank you. Nice to be here.
You're very, very welcome. And I just want to say a very quick hello. I've got a little wriggly friend here. This is my little Tinker.
Oh, he's lovely.
He enjoys the podcast with me, and he always says a quick hello to the guests. So there's Tinker. And I'm going to put him down because he's wriggling today.
Okay.
And so it is wonderful to see you, Antoinette. Really, really lovely to see you, because you've also treated me at the Perrin clinic as well, which it was a joy to be treated by you. You really have an incredible skill set as a healer, and it's been a joy to get to know you as well over the years. So thank you for all you've done for me as well. So honestly, it's a privilege to have you on today.
Oh, it's been an honor to treat you, Cathy. You've taught me so much through treating you.
Oh, thank you. And you also very kindly also have contributed an insert in my book, which comes out, which is The Truth About Me. And it's been a pleasure to have you also included in there as well. And today, I want to hear all about you. So this is going to be very exciting for me personally. I want to hear a little bit about, before we go back, I'd love to hear, Antoinette, a little bit about what you do and what brought you to where you are, and then we'll go right back in time and hear where it all began. So what is it that you do?
Gosh, well, I'm an osteopath. I am an osteopath. I am a massage therapist, and I'm also a Perrin Technique Practitioner. In the order, I think I started out as a massage therapist, and then I went on to osteopathy, and then obviously discovered the Perrin technique. Osteopathy is my second career. I used to work in PR, corporate communications, and I decided to make that switch. And I've been an osteopath since, I qualified as an osteopath in 2018. But before that, it was a 5-year, the course was 5 years because I did it part-time. I have a daughter, so I couldn't do it full-time.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for that overview, because yes, you do. You have, how old is your daughter now, Antoinette?
She's 14.
14. And can we say her name? Can we say a quick hello to her?
Oh, she's called Ruth. And she's currently going through, shall we say, a teenage huff. She's in her room.
Is that because you borrowed her laptop?
Oh, it's because she's a teenager.
But she's also a little star. I've heard so many lovely things about your Ruth. She's amazing.
Oh, she's great. She's great.
And she's clever great before her years as well, as you know, as you have taught her so much, I'm sure. Very bright young lady. And so you've got this gorgeous daughter Ruth, but you've also have this wonderful sort of magnetic personality, Antoinette. It was a joy when my partner Mark Singleton and I first met you when we came to the clinic, and it really was because you've assisted, you've done some treatments with me, as well as Dr. Perrin, and it really was a pleasure. And you started to tell me a little bit about your life, but my brain and body was so malfunctioned. I was trying to piece the jigsaws together, and I remember thinking then, one day I want to hear everything, and this is a great opportunity. So taking us back, Antoinette, so osteopathy, by the way, what's your perception in brief of what osteopathy is, in case anybody has not heard of it?
Gosh, osteopathy is amazing. I mean, I've been practicing it for 6 years. I started learning about it 5 years prior, but it's always surprising me what osteopathy can do. Before I started and came across osteopathy, I always thought that the way the human body works, and it is such an incredible mechanism. It had to have a way of healing itself. And I always thought that we are too quick to shut it up, where it's trying to communicate with us, and we're too quick to medicate. Let's get rid of the pain, let's suppress these symptoms. But a symptom, I feel, is a way of the body trying to tell you what it's doing and what's going on. And I think osteopathy is a really, it listens to the body. The practitioners work with the body to help it heal itself. We as osteopaths, we don't do the healing. We create an environment for the body to heal itself, to do what it needs to do. I, as an osteopath, I don't know really exactly what the body needs. The body knows it. And so I just give it the tools and the space to express what it needs to express. And I think that's incredible. I think I'm so privileged to be an osteopath and to try and understand and communicate with the body in that arena. And I think it's the best way that people can treat themselves and heal themselves. You've got to let the body take control.
That's incredible, Antoinette, and how beautifully expressed as well. You really have a fantastic eloquence with words, and how you've just described that to anybody that doesn't understand or has never heard of osteopathy. And there are a subset of people that genuinely, including myself years ago, I didn't understand it. It was just over there, and you go to your doctor and you just do what you're told and you follow those sets of instructions, and anything alternative was always deemed as something different. And what you've just exemplified is actually, that's your natural healing modality. Is that right?
Yes, and it has to be. I mean, I love working with the doctors. Sometimes, a patient will come to me and, I'll write a letter to the doctor and say, look, this is what I think is happening. What do you think? Unfortunately, it's looking like it's a them and us. You've got the doctors and the alternative practitioners, but I think that's selling ourselves short. We can work together, doctors, osteopaths, physiotherapists, chiropractors, manual therapists. They can't learn everything, because the field of osteopathy is so vast. You need another person that specializes in that. And the field of modern medicine has its place as well. And I think we need to work together. I think it's beautiful when I come across a doctor who understands that, and values my input, and as much as I value their input. I think, there's a lot we can do that I don't think we are doing to try and treat patients. And it could be anything from, neck pain, lower back pain, which everybody comes to us with, to things like ME, where we're just trying to learn what it's about. And I think if we collaborate, both modern medicine, both the, using the principles of osteopathy, we can really arrive somewhere much quicker than we are now.
That's very valuable to hear, definitely. And I've got a lot of great, very valuable friends who are doctors, and they also, as you say, many of them have that wisdom and understanding, an innate wisdom, really, that you have of understanding the symbiotic relationship that, it's a human body.
Yeah.
And if one set of factors can't solve said issue, then perhaps there's another way, and that's what I love. My doctor friends are quite open to all these different modalities as well, and giving the patient the opportunity to try a variety of different things. I mean, sometimes Dr. Perrin himself, who is the sort of pioneer of the Perrin technique for ME, he has often said he's had patients who, for example, just had a week's holiday and they've had enough sunlight and enough rest and recuperation that the sympathetic nervous system, which is out of whack in ME, suddenly relaxes. So there can be these sudden, and even doctors themselves, medical doctors will say, well, they just suddenly got better. How did that happen? And, tell me a bit about that. What do you think we could do to improve the situation today, Antoinette?
Improve the situation between the doctors and
the health modalities offered today. How can we bridge them together, do you feel?
Gosh, I think eventually we will have to do that. And fortunately or unfortunately, COVID brought that to the fore, particularly with long COVID, where doctors literally did not know what was happening. And it caught them by surprise. Interestingly, it didn't catch Dr. Perrin by surprise because he kind of predicted long COVID. But one of the main things, and the NICE guidelines also talks about it, is pacing. Pacing isn't a pill. Pacing isn't go to the doctor, and pacing is you need to give your body rest. You need to allow your sympathetics to calm down. And it's things like that is what's going to bridge where, the doctors will realize that this isn't a pill we can prescribe. We have to start prescribing a walk in the woods, go and do some exercise, meditate, all of these things that traditionally has been known as hippie, namby-pamby kind of. It has a physiological effect. It is in itself a treatment. And I think we've been almost indoctrinated into taking a pill, having a procedure, having things done to us, that we have almost let go of our own agency in trying to heal ourselves. And really, if you're trying to heal your body, you need to be in tune with your body. You need to be able to communicate with it. Nobody is going to do that for you. Really, innately, nobody knows our body more than we do. I'm always surprised and just in awe and amazed at some of my patients when they come in and they are in tune with their body. I can't tell them what's going on. They know what's going on because they know their body. And I give them that respect. And then they kind of lead the session, and really that's what we should be doing.
And I think what's lovely about osteopathy with you in particular, Antoinette, is when I first lay on the bed, I think you said you're a dancer, you're like an osteopath's dream as an ex-dancer, because everything has suddenly dropped off.
That's it. Gosh, there are some people where, you look at their body and you just kind of go, did you do gymnastics or did you do dancing? And then you think, okay, this
Where do I start?
exactly, and it's because dancers, gymnasts, athletes, they've been using their body. Their body's their tool, and so it has developed in a completely unique way than to what we are used to seeing come through our door. Um, you know, a majority of our patients, they're office workers, they're running the rat race, and they're completely disconnected with what's actually going on in their body, their postures all over the place. I mean, I say that I am also a victim to this. I used to work in the corporate world, and the only way that you kind of you're in tune with your body is, maybe one day you wake up and you have a headache, and it's an inconvenience, but it's your body trying to tell you something. Pay attention to me, drink more water, eat the proper food, and help me help you. But we usually ignore it until our body shouts at us, or it says, I'm not doing this anymore. And you wake up and you can't move because your back just, and then you realize, my goodness, I have a back, and it's connected to my neck. How come I've got lower back pain, but my neck hurts? Or how come I've got lower back pain and I've got a headache? And then you start realizing that everything's connected.
That's the most magic part of what I understand osteopathy to be as well, Antoinette, that every part of the body is connected. So, for example, from my own experience, when my gallbladder, which is under functioning, which Dr. Perrin explains in ME is often the case, particularly in women, it was my right arm, that side of my body that is damaged and was having tremors and suddenly flipping backwards and forwards and things like tics, if you like. And once we got the function of the drainage mechanism with your treatment as well as Dr. Perrin, then once the gallbladder and the liver and the kidneys, as you say, they're all connected. Once that started working, well, the tremors started to disappear. So there was physical, practical evidence on my own personal journey, because I was bedbound, wasn't I? I was absolutely a very, very severe case of ME. And even just a standard Perrin treatment with yourself or Dr. Perrin or my partner, Mark Singleton, could literally floor me. So I looked like I was drunk with my legs, didn't I? And
I
just
think
explain that.
the first time I treated you, I think Mark had to carry you out of the treatment room, and I'd never seen anything like it, and I thought, my goodness, I've broken it, and I haven't even done anything. I didn't.
And you
I
hadn't
thought,
broken me.
well,
Ian had the
no.
same experience, who also
Yes,
works at the clinic. Dr. Perrin as well. I used to have one arm on Dr. Perrin, one arm on Mark, and I was laughing like the dentist in the Little Shop of Horrors. And
but
Dr. Perrin would say, "Don't laugh, it's not funny." And that's the
it
poison coming out,
exactly, and it's so incredible how, I mean, the Perrin technique is the gentlest thing.
Yes.
But you can see the profound effect it has, and it just shows that you don't need to do much to the body for it to take over, and it just needs a little bit of help, just a tiny bit, and then it takes over, and it does what it needs to do. um
And if you
the
could just
body
explain what the Perrin technique is, Antoinette, because we obviously know what that is, but anybody listening to this perhaps and hearing about it for the first time, in your own words, what is the Perrin technique and what does it do?
So the theory behind the Perrin technique is that there's a dysfunction in our drainage system, and the lymphatic system is the body's drainage.
Yeah.
It drains all your toxins, and we are every day taking in toxins through our foods, through just our basic biochemical processes. We have waste that the body needs to get rid of, and this is done by the lymphatic system, and it goes everywhere, right up to your brain, right down to your toes. Um, in ME, this system is dysfunctional and is very closely linked with your sympathetic system as well. So what happens is your body retains the toxins that it should be getting rid of. And it's more profound when your brain retains the toxins because obviously that is kind of like the command center of the body, call it. And if it's literally being poisoned, everything is going to go haywire. So the Perrin technique basically just stimulates the lymphatic system to drain and to get rid of the toxins. And it's a very, very gentle technique because the lymphatic system is just underneath the skin. So it's a very, patients can find it very relaxing. It's a gentle massage in areas that have a high concentration of lymphatic vessels. And then we've got to make sure that the cranial flow, which is a way to get the CSF, the cerebrospinal fluid, which bathes the brain. We need to get that flowing as well. In the brain, there is a lymphatic system. It's called the glymphatic system. So that also stimulates the drainage of toxins from the brain. Now, when we start stimulating the lymph, the body is now letting go of the toxins and it's entering the blood. And that's where it gets interesting. That's where you get a wide range of weird and wonderful symptoms, and for most patients, the ME symptoms become more severe because we are now the body is now letting go of these toxins. So for the first few weeks, sometimes it can be months of the treatment, you feel really awful. And I think that's what we saw with you. But I think the amount of toxins that your body had held on to, a full Perrin technique session would release too much. So honestly, your body just couldn't take it.
Yeah.
Even
Dr. Perrin was shocked. He was absolutely
honestly
shocked because I'm in his science book, obviously, as the most toxic, poisoned ME patient who has survived, or one of the most toxic poison who has survived.
Yeah.
And what would normally take 1 to 3 years of the Perrin technique to get somebody back on their feet, because I was in such a bad way, the brain was so inflamed, he said. Unfortunately, in my personal case, because I nearly died. I mean, I was very lucky at 39 to survive. He was shocked that I'd survived this. But what he predicted would perhaps take 3 years. I've been going for 9 years, and 8 of those were almost every single week. So just to highlight to anybody watching, my story is atypical. So most people, it's 1 to 3 years, perhaps some top-up treatments to keep the drainage mechanism moving. But if I'm going to share my story, which obviously my book will do so, The Truth About Me, that will show that I was a highly active stand-up comedian, entertainer. I painted my whole house. I never sat still. My rest time was a Zumba class. And basically my body, as you said, had retained that toxicity. The brain had swelled, because ME is inflammation of the brain and spine. And so when I came to have the Perrin technique with yourself and Dr. Perrin and other practitioners, it was quite shocking for you to see. I mean, luckily I'm a laugher, aren't I? I hope I retained my laugh.
Honestly, Cathy, I heard your laugh before I saw your face. I did. But isn't it incredible, though, how even though your body was basically poisoning itself with all of these toxins, you were still able to carry on. And that's the beauty about the body. It will keep going and going, and it's always trying to find health. Always, always, until it gets to the point where it's like, I have run out of options. There is nothing I can do. This is all I can offer you.
What
And
I
then
think sorry, Antoinette, do you mean it was still able to carry on, like I was still able to push through till I was 39 and then collapse? And I think that's the misconception of ME in the medical modal, or was until the NICE guidelines were changed in 2021, that the belief was if you suddenly were bedbound with ME, that you just suddenly were diagnosed. And what Dr. Perrin and yourself do is you look at your history. And in my case, because I was a fast breech birth, we do think historically that it potentially started there where the neck was misaligned. And it was 9 months later that my nana saved my life, because I nearly died at age 9 months and went blue. After three minutes, she shoved my head under a cold tap and saved my life. So there was already some issue going on with, like I said, with the drainage mechanism that preluded. And I was sick my whole life. So as much as I could, as much as I was carrying on, I was consistently sick with flu symptoms, with tonsillitis, with every illness going. I've had more disease states than most, including parvovirus that only dogs get, which might explain a lot. And all these states of disease. And then finally, there I am. And because I was 39, that's quite a young age to not be able to turn your head on a pillow. So it was almost like the night before, bang, I went down off the stage and I never got back up. But thank goodness it took 2 years to find you guys. And thank goodness I did, because, take me from there, Antoinette. What would you say to somebody in my position who might be, concerned? Does it work? Is it going to be painful? It's not painful at all, is it? It's a detoxification and it's a gentle massage, isn't it?
Oh yes. I mean, the technique itself shouldn't be painful. It's not painful unless you are in a painful state. So for instance, I have patients who their skin is so sensitive that just that gentle massage motion is painful. Or, if I'm giving them a cranial treatment, which is the most gentle, the most relaxing, it can be painful for some people, because just the very fact that I'm touching their heads, and this is the state that the body can get into when everything is painful. And I always say to, and I think I said it to you actually, that once you go through the treatment and you're getting better, you can't be the same person you were at the beginning of treatment as you are at the end. It's a journey, and you learn how to, prioritize your health, prioritize yourself. I mean, with most women, we're at the bottom of the pile, and, we say it, but we don't do it. We say that, look, you need to look after, you can't look after somebody else if you don't look after yourself. We know that. And yet we're always finding ourselves at the bottom of the pile. But when you have ME, you have to prioritize your health. Otherwise, all of that road that you've gained in the treatment, if you decide, do you know what? I think I'm going to do this because I'm expected to do it, or if you put yourself last, you will go right back to the beginning. So you learn how to listen to your body, listen to yourself, how to be in tune with yourself. And I think a lot of people, when they are better and they're coming back for just top-ups, they're different people. You have to be.
I would agree with that, Antoinette, because I said 10 years before I collapsed that it felt like someone was crushing my skull, almost as if my brain was imploding inside my head. That's how I described it. And ironically, that's kind of what was happening. The brain was so inflamed. But once I started the treatment, I remember Dr. Perrin first holding my head, and as you said, it hurt so much. I felt like I was being crushed with a concrete slab in 2014, and I couldn't breathe. But I almost had to go through the pain to come out the other side. But then there's the emotion, there's the emotional healing as well, because I remember you telling me when I described that as I was detoxifying, emotional information and traumas and personal circumstances were suddenly coming to the surface as well, almost like the body keeps what's the word, the body keeps
score.
The body keeps score. And so those things were coming to the surface and detoxifying, along with all of the poison, the heavy metals. And for me, I was poisoned with carbon monoxide as well. So all these massive, tragic poisons, terrible, highly toxic poisons that were coming out at the same time. The emotional issues were rising. But as you quite rightly said, it takes brave souls to go through it. And I would say to anybody, keep going, because especially if you start, don't give up. Because I'm living proof. If I'm one of the worst and I've got to this point, I'm living proof, aren't I, Antoinette? And you saw me at my worst, that you can get better if you do all the right things. Well, you have the best opportunity, I should say, not just with the technique, but diet and holistic, a whole holistic view of the world. I think you've got the best chances of getting much, much better if you keep going. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And unfortunately, life doesn't stop for you to go through what is already going to be a difficult journey. So many of my patients, life throws things at them. They get COVID. They're going through a divorce. Their relationship breaks down, and everything else that would make you struggle through life is still happening while your body is trying to detoxify, and you feel awful, and you've got to look after your kids, and your kids don't understand, your partner doesn't understand, and it's really hard. So to get to the other end, gosh, the strength of character that my patients have to keep going and keep going, because I think survival kicks in, and you just keep going because you want to feel better. You want to you want to carry on. You don't want to feel that bad anymore. It's almost like if you've had enough. And it's when they're in the middle of treatment where they're a little bit better, and they don't want to go back to what they were before, but the journey is so hard. And that's when you have to tell them, you've got to keep going. You have to, because it's working. You don't want to slide back to what you were before. There is light at the end of the tunnel. I know it looks like a massive mountain, but you've got to climb it. There's no other way up to the top but climb that mountain and just keep going.
And trust in the process as well.
Trust in the process.
There was moments, the reason I tell my story is Mark Singleton, who's now a Perrin practitioner as well. He'd had this condition for 3 decades. And when he met me, he used to carry me until Dr. Perrin said, no, don't carry her. And he said, well, she's only 7 stone. And he said, nothing to do with her weight. It's to do with your spine. So, that explanation made sense. And what you and Dr. Perrin and now Mark pass on to his patients and yours is, it makes sense. When I saw Dr. Perrin and heard his theory and heard how everything worked together and what potentially caused this condition, that made sense. Whereas nothing else had made sense up until that point. It made sense. And bit by bit by bit, it felt like pieces of the inside of my brain were relaxing and my skull was no longer hurting the way it was, and my inner ears that were damaged, all the bits of the body were healing bit by bit. And it took time in my case, but I want to encourage everybody that takes on this journey to look at other modalities alongside it. In particular, diet. Mark and I have found that a healthy diet, no alcohol, no sugar, no gluten, no dairy. I say no fun, but you know what? The benefits from eliminating more toxins, because you agree with that as well. Why put more toxins in when your body's trying to get rid of very, very, big toxins? Go on, you take over.
I think sometimes people expect. I'll tell you why the Perrin technique takes so long, because we've given, the body's taken over, and the body is healing, and healing takes time, because if you have ME and you've had it since birth and you've lived 3 decades, that's 30 years that needs to unravel. And I think we've been indoctrinated with, take a pill, and you feel much better in 2 to 3 hours. Take this antibiotic. And don't get me wrong, I think antibiotics are great. And the bacteria will die, and then off you go. And so when you get a condition that takes years, and a change in your lifestyle, and a change in who you are to get better, we're not used to that. No. You want to just carry on with your life the way you want to live it. But the way you've been living your life is sometimes what has gotten you here in the first place.
That's it.
Yeah, and some people don't want to hear that you've really got to stop eating sugar. It's not good for you. You've really got to stop eating this particular food. It's not good for you, because they want to do what everybody else is doing.
Yes. Yes, I think that's extremely valuable. That it's almost like all the exciting distractions that the media give us, that the films give us.
It's the marketing.
The marketing that we have for these products are actually making us sick. And once we understand and unpack that, but it's not just that, as you say, it's also your lifestyle. I was a very excitable person who never rested. I never ever put myself first in anything, and that I found the most difficult part of the chapter of my recovery. But because I couldn't physically walk or move or even speak at one point, and was completely and utterly, my brain had gone, I didn't have a choice. So, but had I got better within 3 months, I probably would have gone back on stage, working till 2 in the morning on a stage and performing. I would have gone back to exactly who I was, negating my diet and health and, a quick bit of food at 2 o'clock in the morning after a show because I didn't have time. But what I've done is I've restructured my entire life, as you have helped to teach us as well. From the minute you wake up, the most important thing now is I'll start with a healthy smoothie, which is a mixed vegetable smoothie and cacao powder, and it tastes like chocolate, and it's got a banana in, and so it tastes fun. But it's all healthy, and that's the start of my day, and that's now become my new habit, perhaps instead of a bowl of cereal. So it's learning new habits that are sustaining your ability to because it's damaged cells, Dr. Perrin explains, isn't it, in the body that can keep the person sick with any health condition. So what I've learned to do is find sustainable ways to stay healthy, continue to get healthier, and I welcome all alternative health modalities, from therapy right through to emotional somatic release, which is something Mark is qualified in. Anything that can detoxify, and like you said about meditation as well, anything that helps to aid the body's natural healing process. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Nature takes time. Nature is not running on our timetable, which is quick. I've taken this pill. It should be working within half an hour. Fast acting this, fast acting that, so that you can carry on with your fast life.
Yeah.
And that's not nature.
And all these, whatever the label of the condition is, that all the body's way is basically saying, whatever you're doing to me today, it's not conducive with long-term health, and therefore, like you say, stop, reset, and give your body the time that it needs. That's why there's no time to healing. So one person may take 12 months, perhaps because they weren't as toxic as I was. It's taken me 9 years and I'm still having treatment, but that's because I had 39 years of a deluge of toxins and a lifestyle that even a sports athlete would say was perhaps a little excessive. So I had to relearn everything. So, I want to encourage people to think about that side as well, and how you can help yourself in this process.
Absolutely. I think it's really heartwarming to see where, as part of some patients' recovery, they have said, right, I can't do the job that I was doing before. I will completely retrain and do something else. And for them to arrive there, they really had to search deep within themselves and say, what is it that I like doing? And I've got this amazing patient who had, and she was a consultant. She just kept push, working at a high level. And then, she had ME, but, didn't want to acknowledge it. So she push through during the day and come home and just break. And then the next day, push through again and then break, and, boom and bust, boom and bust. Well, it wasn't even a boom and bust. She was just pushing through it. And, maybe at the weekend, she'll get a little bit of rest and then, feel a little bit energized. And then on Monday, keep going. And now, once she got the ME diagnosis, and she got a couple of other diagnoses as well, where she understood what was going on with her. She's retrained to be what is she retrained to be? A health coach, a lifestyle coach.
Wow.
Yeah, completely. I mean, she's used her innate skills of being driven and, helping people and all, and she's completely turned it around to do something that is more conducive to her condition, because at the end of the day, ME is a chronic condition. So you can't say, oh, I'm going to do this until I feel better, and then I'm going to go back to what I was before. No, it's a chronic condition. It's always going to be there. So you have to live your life differently to what everybody else is doing. And that's not to say what everybody else is doing is better. I think ME patients really, once they've got that balance, their lives are better. They meditate, they listen to their body, they put themselves first, the things that we should be doing. The only problem is that they can't get away with it if they don't do it.
That's very, very wise words, Antoinette. Very, very valuable. We as ME patients can't actually recover if we don't do this set of restorative, habitual lifestyle resets, whereas a healthy person can. Because I've met people who said, well, I've got two grandmas. One of them, they both lived till, let's say, 85. One of them ate junk food and smoked, and the other one was a health guru, but they both lived till 85. Well, there's some genetics in that. There's some luck. I do have to say that my nana always said in the past, they never called it organic food like we do today. It was just called food. So there's a lot of highly toxic changes to the world today that perhaps 100 years ago weren't there, possibly. Differences. We've got more radiation, we've got more electricity, for example. I worked on stage under electrics, and it's interesting that entertainers and sports athletes and people like that seem to have a charge of the sympathetics, because obviously I have electromagnetic sensitivity, so I collapse in electrics. So there's something going on there that's stimulating the sympathetics. But also, I think what's valuable that you expressed to me in treatment once was the people who have maybe not the chemical overload that I have, which is the carbon monoxide, the paint fumes, the medicine, too much medicine, all the different things that I had in my system, but they actually had high emotional toxicity. So just share with the audience about that, because I remember you saying, I've not met anybody like you, Cathy, that suddenly has this reaction. But that was a lot of chemicals coming out. But as you quite rightly said, most of your patients seem to have an emotional reaction. And why is that, Antoinette? I know, but I want you to share with the audience. Why do you think that affects things?
Well, I think it's going back to the body keeps score, and there isn't a separation between the mind and the body. It's all the same thing. So, if you have gone through a particular trauma manifests physically as well. You go into shock. Why do you go into shock? Because you're having a physiological reaction to something that you've seen or something that's happened to you. And so it is no surprise that a lot of our patients, if you look at their case history, they've not all, but a, a significant portion have had some kind of trauma, whether it's abuse, whether it's a particularly horrendous parental divorce or a particularly horrendous accident that happened to them. And yes, you've got the physical aspects of that, but there's also the emotional aspects. And all of that feeds into your sympathetics. And if you don't deal with that emotion and you keep trying to suppress it, it will manifest in another way. And if you're susceptible to ME, if you're susceptible to a dysfunctional lymphatic system, if your sympathetics are constantly switched on because you've got this low-level chronic stress that you're not even acknowledging.
Yes, that's important. You're not actually necessarily acknowledging
Yeah.
whatever the flap is underneath the duck legs. You're not processing it, and certainly in abuse and historical trauma, those are things that are often pushed aside. So if anybody's had a history of assaults, which I have, things like that, those are suppressed, and they say the average time to deal with that is 21 years, for example. And as much as there's a physical health condition, so my spine is an abnormal shape and my neck alignment is abnormal, those, and my structural alignment, my jaw was misaligned from birth, those are your structural issues. But then you've also got your physical, so I had a couple of car crashes, a couple of smashes to the face and broken nose, those are your physical trauma as well. But then you've also got, as you quite rightly said, the bit that people don't want to share often, which is the emotional, and the bit that we all human beings suppress. And I once met a lady whose mother suddenly died, age 50, of cancer, of a tumour, because she'd been abused, she'd had assaults, and she basically suddenly acknowledged it, and sadly the body reacted physically. And within a 12 months, sadly, she'd passed. And so she didn't have the opportunity, if you like, to talk. And what I love about you, Antoinette, is because you have the biggest heart in the world as well. You really are an empath, and that's what we need. We don't need the fast, come in, take your history for 2 minutes, of which it's not enough time. So in merging the modalities and the quick fixes of the medical modal, and it's not their fault, it's not the doctor's fault, they too want to be more intuitive and hear more about what the patient has gone through, for example, but there isn't the time constraints, and we're almost reducing that time. So it's 2 minutes for a patient, and then the doctors themselves are often getting cancer or ME or some other health condition, a heart attack or something, because they are also under that high level of stress. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think the emotional part, has a much bigger part to play than we give it credit for.
Yeah.
But I will also say there is a caveat there. I have one patient who is very severe, very, very severe, and she's very unwell. And I asked her, I said, did you have an unhappy childhood? She's like, no, I don't understand why I am so unwell.
Yeah.
She has other issues apart from ME.
Yeah.
And I honestly, sometimes, I don't know. Well, sometimes we just and maybe she's not acknowledging something that's happened, but perhaps, it's not always emotional. And the traumas that we talk about, it can also be a medical trauma, the trauma of not being believed of your symptoms, being told that it's in your head when you are in an incredible amount of pain, or you simply do not have the energy to lift your head up, and you go and see your doctor and they dismiss you.
Yeah.
That's traumatic.
Yes,
Or
it is.
I have, particularly when it starts in your teenage years and nobody's believing you, and your pediatrician is dismissing you, your school is telling you you have to come to school, and you feel awful.
Yeah.
That's traumatic. And it
and quite frightening, because I had Dr. Nigel Spate on the channel, who's the UK's leading paediatrician of ME, and he also said he's just so baffled that a child in a wheelchair, as I was, but as a child in a wheelchair, presenting with the same symptomology, they can't move, they can't do anything, and being forced to go to school and told it's all in the mind. He said that I can't understand. And as a child, I said to him, they have no voice. Their voice is their parent, and if their parent believes them, then they've got an easier journey. But if their parent is following the NICE guidelines, as they were, luckily, as we both agreed, they've changed now from 2021. It is not psychological. And if anybody still thinks that, they must refer to the NICE guidelines of 2021 under Dr. Nigel Spate's recommendation, because that highlights it is physical, and we can't exercise, we can't do those things the way a healthy person can, or up to 3 days later we have what's called post-exertional malaise, and we get very sick. And trust me, I have tried it. I mean, even in the early stages, I would try and garden, and Dr. Perrin would say, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, I got this 5-minute window. I say early stages, but early stages as in a few years, because I've been going for 9. So I would try and uproot a bush, like my nana was very, good gardener. So I would try and uproot a bush or something, and within 5 minutes, I was on the floor. So the problem with having had such a highly active lifestyle, and this goes for any cross spectrum of anybody with ME, if your mindset is push through, for me it was the show must go on, being an entertainer. If your mindset doesn't change, as you quite rightly said, then your nervous system can't relax. And I once said to Dr. Perrin, I get excited emptying a dishwasher, and he said, well, when you're better you can come and empty ours every day. So I would actually get excited, but what we realized, it wasn't excitement, Antoinette, it was an overstimulated nervous system. And once that started to calm down, and it's taken years in my case, and as I detoxified more and more and more, I am now so calm, which is the absolute polar opposite of who I was. And I always thought to not be excited all the time must be very boring. But my goodness, the pleasure of sitting in nature, in the woods with my little dog Tinker, and meditating in the sunshine when it comes out, and deep breathing and relaxing is a greater joy than all the round of applause on stage and the exhilaration of electricity and flashing lights. So once you do calm your whole nervous system down, it can start to heal. And that's as long as it takes. And Dr. Perrin has said, very much in line with what you said, he does say, not everybody has emotional issues that have ME, but what he explains is that it's the neurotoxins that build up in the stress of whatever the trauma is in the brain, and those toxins can't detoxify. So you've got a subset that only have emotional trauma, you've got a subset that only had physical trauma, like my jaw was misaligned, and then you've got the subset who had the chemical trauma, so they've been poisoned by something. But the reason I told my story, Antoinette, was because I had all three of the highest level. And I'm not, I'm not embarrassed to share that. I think it's important that people hear that so that they can say, well, I only had that bit, but I didn't have that bit. And the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome as well is important, because there's an enormous subset of patients who have this joint hypermobility, which is amazing for getting in a magic box and back bending and all, putting your leg behind your head at Christmas at the Christmas table. Great. I mean, I can get my elbows onto the floor if I put if I stand with my legs straight. I'm so hypermobile. But as you quite rightly said, that's not a good thing.
But honestly, the capacity for the body to heal is mind-blowing. You just need to give it the right environment, the right tools. The body will change. It will change. It doesn't matter whether you're 8 or 80, the body will change. If it starts changing at 80, you might not have enough time to see the results, but it's making its mind up to change, because it's always trying to find health. Always, always, always trying to find health. So if you're giving it the right tools, if you're giving it the right environment, it will find the path to health.
Yeah. And I think your intuitiveness in what you do as well also hugely aids that, because you would feel the skull, you had extra things that were personal to you, and we're going to go back onto that in a second. And you would, I think at one point you were stretching my limbs and doing the most incredible
that was myofascial release.
Go on, tell me about the myofascial release. Go on.
Myofascial release. So that's I think fascia is also another fascinating part of our body that yet again we have discarded. It's the tissue that holds all our organs. And if you've ever, I know you're vegetarian, aren't you? Are you vegetarian?
No, I eat fish and eggs now, but I was for 17 years vegetarian.
So in when you're trying to prise the skin away from the chicken breast, or it's that film in between that you think, oh, let's get rid of that. That's actually quite an intelligent tissue that communicates and runs all the way through the body. And if that becomes restricted, that can cause all sorts of problems. I mean, I think there's so much we don't know about the human body, so much, and I just enjoy trying different techniques, or just learning about the different things. I will continually, joyously try and just keep learning about what the body is trying to do, to try and heal, or just how it functions. It's incredible. So sometimes, yes, along with the Perrin technique, I'll try something else, and maybe it is a little bit intuitive for me to think, okay, well, maybe this person might, benefit from this approach, or and I guess maybe it's a little bit of experience, a little bit of intuition, a little bit of just trial and error, see if this works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I think I've been incredibly gentle, and the next week the patient comes back and they'll say to me, don't do that again. My body did not like that.
Well, I was going to say that's interesting, because I always had the belief that if you did the treatment as hard as possible, and I'm not alone in that with ME, then it will fast track it, because I was such a fast paced person before 10 years ago. and I'm much slower now. And I just thought, go on, get those toxins out, have a big detox, and then I can hurry up and get my life back. But you've highlighted today that seems to be the mindset of doctors, of scientists, of entertainers, sports athletes. And as Dr. Perrin said, it tends to be those people whose brains never stop, who are constantly either physically or mentally pushing themselves to the extreme. We seem to be the subset that are the hardest hit, aren't we? I believe we're the hardest hit.
Absolutely. The what is it, the type A's who just want to just, right, so this illness is an inconvenience. Can we just get it, can we just fix it so that I can go back to what I was before? Kind of missing the point.
Yes.
And I think the more, like you said, it's a mindset. The more you change, the quicker you change that mindset and realize that, okay, I actually have to change. But it's a whole load of things that will contribute.
Yes.
Your environment, your predisposition, your this, your that, how you even your body's ability to handle stress. And
Yes.
maybe they had some kind of outlet subconsciously that they didn't think about that handle their stress a little bit better than the person who is will go on to develop ME. And it's your whole lifestyle and and everything else around it, which is why we take such a detailed case history, because we need to understand the person in front of us to get an idea of how they personally have arrived to this point, as opposed to the next person who has a similar lifestyle but doesn't.
That is so interesting, because you obviously, in doing osteopathy as well, and we're going to have a look at that now, you also treat patients who don't have ME, and some of them might work physically harder than some subset with ME, for example, because ME isn't just people as crazy as I was, because I was actually called Crazy Cathy in my drama school. You could have peeled me off the ceiling, Antoinette. I didn't just watch the show and choreograph it. I would do the whole show out front, and then do my own show for 2 hours afterwards as a little bit of a treat. So I think, learning how we live, winding it all back, starting almost at the building blocks at the beginning. If I can get to this point, and it's been years for me, a long, long journey, but unpack it all, throw everything out, start again, and try a little bit of everything. But the glory and honor is to meet people like you along that journey path as well. People who are intuitive, healers and carers. So Antoinette, take us back to your young childhood. What inspired you? First of all, where were you born?
So I was born in Ghana, on quite an auspicious date, actually. So, my dad was in the military. He was a doctor. He was a military doctor, and I was born on the 5th of June in 1979. Now, to a Ghanaian who lived around that time, they know exactly. There was a coup the day before, a military coup on the 4th of June, and the leader of the military who instigated this coup, it was a tragic day on the 4th of June, and we lived on on military barracks. And on this day, the soldiers, obviously there's a coup, there's everything's gone haywire, lots of riots and stuff. And the soldiers decided they were going to turn on the military officers. And they were, they drank, they were high, they were going from door to door in the military, like the officer barracks, killing officers. Our next door neighbors were killed. And they came knocking on our door looking for my dad, because they knew that my dad was a military officer. They knew where he was. They had a vendetta against him, and they came with the intent of killing him. And So my dad had to make that decision. And in the house, it was my mum was heavily pregnant with me. Obviously, I was born the day after, so she was heavily pregnant with me. And my three brothers who were young, I think my eldest brother was 7, I think 5, and the youngest brother, who's 13 months older than me, he was a babe in arms because he was 13 months. And we had my grandma as well, my mum's mum, who had come to help my mum with the birth, and my dad in this house. And my dad had to make this heart-wrenching decision to leave his family and run away, because if the soldiers came to the house, they would have killed him. Our next door neighbor had been killed. They would have killed him. So he ran off through the back door, and the soldiers, burst in. Where's Dr. Atuah? And my mum said, he's not here. I think they beat up we call him a houseboy, kind of like the house help, the male house help. I think they hit him with the butt of a gun, and they took my mum out to the backyard a little bit further down, and put a gun to my mum's head and made her call out to my dad, so that if he was hiding there, he would have to come out, obviously. And by that time he'd gone, so thankfully he didn't hear that. And so they took her back in and, said, right, we're hungry, give us something. And these soldiers were high, they were drunk. They wanted money. They said, we're hungry, give us food to eat. My mum gave them food to eat, and they said, we're going to come back. Obviously they realized that he wasn't there. They're going to come back, and they, and then they left. Not surprisingly, my mum went into labor after this experience, and she was going to get in the car, and they said, I don't know who said to her, you can't drive. If they see a car going down the road, they will shoot first, ask questions later. You cannot get in the car. So my mum walked along the road barefoot in labor, trying to get to the military hospital.
With all of the little boys?
No, she left the boys. She left the children with my grandma.
Right.
And so she went on her own, and then some like a army tanker, like an armored vehicle, came along the road, and they said, what are you doing? Do you not know what's going on? She said, yes, but I'm in labor. I need to get to the hospital. So they gave her a lift, and took her to the military hospital, which wasn't that far down the road. And in the hospital, absolute chaos, pandemonium, as in blood everywhere. And she was trying to get onto this bed, but the bed had blood on it, and my mum said, I don't care. I am about to drop this baby. Yeah, and that's how I came into the world.
Antoinette, what a story!
On the 5th of June. Yeah, that's how I came into the world.
Well, that explains why you are as beautiful as you are. That says it all.
Yeah.
What a wonderful mum with a wonderful spirit, and a wonderful father, and what a wonderful lady you are, which explains everything.
Yeah.
My goodness.
I think my dad heard that she'd given birth was it a couple of days or maybe that day? I can't remember. My dad tells us this story every day on my birthday, and for some reason I haven't, I don't have all the details. Yeah, and then he came, and we had to go and live with my uncle somewhere else because it was still quite, it was a bit of a hotbed. It wasn't safe, and yeah, so in the first 6 months of my life, it was quite traumatic and dramatic, and yeah.
Goodness.
So that's how I was born. So I lived in Ghana till I was 9.
So you were separated from your siblings. Your siblings were cared for by your lovely grandmother.
No. That was just till my mum gave birth.
Okay.
And then, so my mum just left my brothers in the house.
Okay.
And she went to, took a walk down to the hospital, and she gave birth. And I think she came back to the house that day. So we weren't separated. We were still a family.
Okay. Oh, so she came back. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you were raised there, is that correct?
Yes. So
yes.
we lived in Ghana till I was 9. My
and you went to a
dad.
local school there, is that right?
Yes. We lived in the capital, and we went to an international school called Christ the King. I don't know, 9 years old. I don't know what year I was in. And it was a relatively happy childhood. My dad came to the UK to study, to do further training when I was 5 years old. And again, he was still in the army, and due to political, military red tape, he was stuck here for 4 years. And after the 4 years, I think he realized that he wasn't going to be allowed to go back to Ghana. So we came here to join him, and we went to live in Scotland for a year, because he was training at Raigmore Hospital in Inverness. So we came and went straight from Ghana to Inverness, which was culture shock, as you can imagine. They didn't understand my accent. I didn't understand their accent. Why is it always so cold? What is this?
Why is it always so cold? like where we are now, Lancashire's not too dissimilar.
Absolutely. It's like, what's happening? And then,
what is this accent?
What's why don't you understand me? I'm speaking English. And we did. I mean, English was our national language. And honestly, I spoke better English than the English when I came here, because we learned the Queen's English. We didn't learn a dialect or any, we learned English as, yeah.
You learn RP, receive pronunciation, so you have a beautiful speaking voice, whereas we people from Lancashire, we talk like that down our nose.
Well, that's it. So
very hard for you to understand.
we didn't learn English with an accent, So
yes.
I didn't understand. I mean, obviously, I didn't realize that. Of course, I had an African, I had a Ghanaian accent, but I came here, and the Scottish accent. I was like, is this English? What's going on? And then a year later, we moved to Manchester, and that's where I grew up. That's where the family home was, and until I left.
So you'd be about age 10 there, is that right?
Yes. And then I went to a Catholic convent grammar school for secondary school. And then I went to university. I did biomedical science at Durham, and I think there I was always good at biology, and I think it was because I did have an inherent interest in the human body and how it worked, and I always found that fascinating, always. And when I'll tell you an interesting story as to how I started thinking about massage. I took a year. I did a gap year between finishing sixth form and going to university. And I went to America. I was an au pair, and at the end of it, I traveled around, and we were on this tour, and it was a bunch of us on this tour bus, and we lived and slept and drove around in this bus. It was a really interesting experience, and it was just it was 12 strangers. We got together, and by the end of I think it was a 2-week tour. We were going from the East Coast to the West, no, the West Coast to the East Coast, from San Francisco, and we ended up in New York. We all kind of lived on this bus, and we got to know each other. And there was this guy on there who was a similar age to me, and he was so good looking. He was so fine, and I really fancied him, and we were good friends. And, in those 2 weeks, I thought we were getting somewhere. And then one night, because you do get tired after a while, and one night, one of the other travelers, she was a massage therapist, right? And she gave him a massage, and he was putty in her hands. And I was so jealous. And I thought, I need that power. How do I use my hands to
win men?
Such power. How? I need to learn this. And that's how the seed of massage was sown in my head, because I thought, wow, how can you possibly? Anyway, I didn't get together with this guy. I think after the massage thing, his head was turned, and I thought, no, 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 I must learn this tool. Anyway, so
some people go a medical route, but yours was a romantic route.
Absolutely. Listen, whatever it takes. And then when I was doing biomedical science, I was learning more and more about the body. I just, with that experience, I thought, the power, we underestimate the power of touch. All jokes aside about, the romantic aspects of it, you can, through touching somebody, completely alter their mood, for good or bad. And I just felt that we have underestimated that, and we don't use it enough. And as I was learning more and more about the body, I just thought, wow, this is such an intelligent mechanism. Why are we, and it's trying to communicate with us. I had all of these thoughts even before I came across osteopathy. And then when I think it was probably my final year or the year before, my mum had a car accident, and she developed chronic back pain. And, I thought, wow, well, maybe I can use massage to help her.
Yeah.
So when I graduated, in the time between graduating and finding a job, I did a really short course in massage, and I was kind of massaging my mum, my mum's back, to see if it'll help. So I had, I kind of had like a little massage qualification and stuff. And, again, that was something I just put in my back pocket. And, I went into the corporate world. I was working in medical communications. I was in the Territorial Army.
Wow.
I moved down to London. I was living my life. And I got made redundant because the company I was working for went into administration, and so I didn't have a job. And at the time as well, my TA unit were looking for volunteers for people to go to Bosnia. It was either Iraq or Bosnia, and I wanted to go to Iraq, but I thought my mum will have a heart attack if I told her I was going to Iraq. So let me just go to Bosnia. Bosnia was peacekeeping. It was less hot, shall we say. So I became a full-time soldier. I trained. I went to Bosnia with the European forces. I was there for a year. It was an amazing experience. The manual side of kind of who I was kind of put on the back burner. But it was also during this time that I thought to myself, okay, towards the end of the tour, I thought, what are you going back to do? I didn't want to go back to the corporate world. It didn't feed my soul. It was never my bag. It was never something that I was not a 9-to-5 worker.
Yeah.
I knew that right from the beginning. And then I had a long, hard thing, and I thought, okay, so what do you like doing? And I thought, actually, I like the massage. I like massaging. I like the effect it has on people. But then it was like, well, you've been to university for 4 years learning biomedical science. How do you kind of use that experience and that knowledge, and the massage? And that's how I came across osteopathy, because it's almost like the clinical aspects with the biomedical science degree, using that, but then using and harnessing the power of touch as well.
Yeah.
And then I came across the principles of osteopathy, and I thought, my goodness, that's what I've always believed. You know, the body is its own medicine chest, and the body is a unit. You know, all of those principles. And so I thought, right, yes, I'm going to study osteopathy, and I applied, and I got a space, got a place, and everything. And then when I
Where did
came
you
back,
go, Antoinette? Where did you go to study osteopathy?
well, I initially applied to the British College of Osteopathic Medicine, and I was going to do it full time. But then when I came back, I went to Ghana, and I thought to myself, do you know what? Since I left at 9, I've never lived here as an adult, so let me do that first. Let me do it for a year.
Wow. So
So I took,
just to pause you there, you basically wanted to go and see what your homeland, your
yeah,
hometown
because
was like,
yeah,
because you don't remember it up to age 5, perhaps,
and
or not a lot of it.
well, I mean, I'd never lived there as an adult, and I've always thought in the back of my mind, yes, I'm Ghanaian, but I haven't had an experience as an adult of
Yeah,
Ghana.
yeah.
And I just thought, okay, let me just defer my entry to osteopathy for a year and then live in Ghana for a year, get a job. And I was lucky because we still had the family home, so I could just go and live in the family home. Um,
And what did you
and
do there? What did you do
I
in Ghana?
I was working. I ended up working in a medical, not medical, in a telecommunications agency. I
Okay.
eventually ended up working for Vodafone in Ghana, but the 1 year stint um, became 5 years because what I learned was you don't just go and live in Ghana for a year. It takes you a year to acclimatize. Um, and then also it didn't help that we had the economic crash of
Yeah,
2008.
yeah.
And honestly, there was nothing for me to come back to. So and
Oh,
Ghana was thriving at the time. And I was getting, I had a good job. And so I
yeah.
thought, you know what, let me just stay here. And that's when my life changed significantly. I met my daughter's father, and my daughter came along. But after a while, always in the back of my mind, I knew it was, if you don't do osteopathy, if you don't go back to the UK and do osteopathy, Antoinette, you're going to regret it. So 5 years later, I thought, right, down tools, go back and do osteopathy. And so I
Is
came
it
back.
not is it not available in Ghana? Excuse my
Absolutely not.
ignorance. There's no
Absolutely not.
osteopathy whatsoever, or
No.
any massage or anything like
Right
that.
now, there is not a single osteopath in Ghana. No. Um,
Right.
there are chiropractors, but there aren't osteopaths. I think our idea of health is very different over there.
Okay.
So yeah, I left everything and came back, and I applied to, because by that time I had my daughter and I knew I couldn't do it full time.
Yeah.
So I applied to the then British School of Osteopathy, which is Dr. Perrin's alma mater, actually. He went to British School of Osteopathy. It's a very well-known, very prestigious osteopathy
Yes.
school.
Yeah.
It's now called the University College of Osteopathy. But yes, and so I did 5 years.
And is that in
Um,
London? Is that in London, Antoinette?
it's in London. It's in
Yeah.
London. But I was living in Manchester. The plan was I'll come back. Obviously, I'll come back to Manchester because that's where the family home was, and that's where my parents went. Interestingly enough, I came in April, and then in June they moved back to Ghana to retire. And I
You're
thought
joking. Oh,
I
so you missed each other.
I tried not to take it personally, but it's okay.
I was just gonna say, I didn't want to say that joke.
No, no,
She's back. We're
yeah,
off.
we're off. Yeah, great.
And I know that
Um,
that's not true. It's
no,
nothing to
that's
do
not
with that.
true. That's
I
not
bet
true.
they were sad as well. Maybe they were thinking of coming over to be with you, and then you surprised them by returning, perhaps.
No, I mean, I always told them that I was going to come back. I think it was my dad's secret wish that I would stay in Ghana and settle in Ghana.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
when I came back and said, right, I'm back, I'm going to study, I'm going to be an osteopath, they went, what's an osteopath? What is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, that's
no. What? But you have a life in Ghana. What are you doing? And I said, no.
oh
I want to be an osteopath. And interestingly, I think I get my kind of approach to health, like the natural approach, from my mum. My mum's always been that kind of person who's, always trying to feed you with a certain herb or doing that. And, that's her side that I
wow.
think I have taken on.
Yeah.
My mum didn't, as women of her generation living in Ghana, she wasn't educated to a high level. I don't think she finished high school, but she was incredibly industrious. She still is. She's alive. She's incredibly industrious, very entrepreneurial. Um, you know, light. She knew what she knew, and she very
She's passed on
independent.
those
She
qualities to
has.
you.
Absolutely. And obviously with the degree and everything, I've just kind of almost formalized it,
Yeah.
and become an osteopath. I think if my mum had all the resources available to me, she would be an osteopath with, like a very, very well respected osteopath or alternative therapist for sure.
And does she sort of respect it now, even though she didn't understand what it was, like I didn't 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Does she now, having digested it, having listened and watched what you do, does she respect it now the
I
way we
think
do?
I think through me, she has she's almost like legitimized all the things that she was saying that we never believed.
Yeah.
This herb does that. Oh, really, mom? Oh, take that. Onions are really good for you, and do that. And we're like, oh, really? But
What's
now,
really good for you? Say that again.
onions.
Onions. Yeah.
Onions
Yeah.
really, garlic's really good for you. And
Yeah.
she's got hypertension, and she used to like eat raw garlic, and we would just look at her like, you stink.
But had I
But
eaten that, I
she
might not have been
had,
on your table.
but she had the right idea.
Yeah.
Garlic does reduce hypertension,
Yeah. I
or
eat a lot of it
contributes to it.
now. Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Garlic is
actually, as
like
your
really
body
good.
adjusts to it, it doesn't smell as much. It's the
No. I mean,
detoxification.
yes,
Mm.
but my mum took it to a completely different level. She would swallow, like eat 2 or 3 bits of garlic where it's just coming out of her pores, and then she'd go to work, and you're just like, oh, mother, just what are you doing?
That's fantastic. What wonderful skill sets, character, just even the story of your own birth, Antoinette. What a pioneer, a magic, inspirational lady, your mum. Can I ask what her name is?
Agatha.
Agatha. Well,
Yeah.
well done,
Yeah.
Agatha. What
Well, yeah, honestly.
there's a movie just, there for Agatha's story, isn't there?
Indeed.
Including your own. I mean, what a story, and what wonderful, as I say, attributes that she has passed down to yourself, and I'm sure your dad as well. What did your dad give you that you think is part of who you are as well?
Oh, my dad.
Strength of character, perhaps.
I think, oh, for sure. I
Yeah,
mean, my dad always told us, your character it is your gift,
yeah,
look, even if you don't have money, if you don't do this, it is your character that determines who you are and how people talk about you.
yeah,
And my dad has got like strength of character. He's got this integrity, which he really tried to instill in us. And because he lived in this country and wasn't able to go back to Ghana when he wanted to, a lot of his peers have gone on, and they're, director of this medical institution or whatever, and he didn't get to those heights. However, um, his character precedes him, his name precedes him. Everybody, speaks well of Dr. Atuah, and sometimes I think he forgets his own words, and he forgets that truly is who you are.
It's your
Because
spirit. He showed spirit, integrity, and protection.
absolutely.
He saved all of you. He
Yeah.
literally saved you from the choice that he made in that story, that life story that you've shared. He made that decision to protect his wife, to protect his unborn child, his 3 little boys, and that's a big decision to make, but he did
I can't
it.
imagine what was going through his mind then, honestly, to have to leave your pregnant, because really, if if things had gone wrong, he would
Yeah,
have lost everything. He would have lost his family. Because those soldiers would not have thought twice about killing a whole family. They didn't know what they were doing. So you hear these stories, in war-torn Ukraine, and what the soldiers are doing. That was a similar situation. So for
yeah,
him, and we're a very religious family. We're
yes,
great Catholics, and I think that was definitely a decision that was led by a divine influence to
yes,
give him that
yes,
strength to
that
say,
intuitiveness.
I
Yes,
have to leave my family, because it's counterintuitive to do something like that. But honestly, if 100%, if they have found him in that house, they would have killed him.
yeah.
They would have killed him, and probably killed the whole family.
And did they come back, Antoinette, or did he come back? Was there a period of time where he stayed away until you were safe,
I
or
think he stayed away for a couple of days.
yeah, just to be on the safe side?
Yeah, and
And do you know where he
one,
went, or is
yes,
that
he was
something you don't?
hiding. He was
Okay,
hiding. A Because you've got like these guards,
yeah,
um, who they're not soldiers. They just kind of, like a security guard.
yeah.
A security guard saw him and let him hide in his like security kiosk thing.
Wow.
I don't. I want to say he was there for a day or two.
Yeah.
Or it could have
Prob
been. Yeah, it
Probably
was
a couple
definitely
of
a
days, I
day.
would say. I think something as challenging as that, Antoinette, I would
Yeah,
say that he probably just lay low to
yeah,
protect you all.
yeah. He. I think he did. I think it was maybe a day,
Wow.
a couple of days. Oh, she's told me this story so many times. I really should have. I should know all this. But um,
But he came
yes,
back,
and
and
and and
yeah,
he's been through a lot, and he's sacrificed a lot
yeah,
for us.
yeah,
He practically sacrificed his career, really,
yeah,
for us to have the opportunities we had in this country. So, uh, both my mum and my dad, great influences on um, who I am now, and the
yeah.
person I am now. Although I think my dad wanted me to be like the traditional doctor, following his footsteps kind of thing. And it's interesting because I think I am a kind of like an amalgamation of my dad's medical background, but my mum's alternative
Yes,
approach to things, and
yes.
I've become both of that, and now I'm an osteopath, which is helping people as my dad did, but in an alternative way as my mum did.
Absolutely. And I think that's
Yeah.
important because as we move forward, we do start to open up like a flower in this world. Hang on a second, let's get back to how things were in primitive times where we did have natural healing modalities, and how did they survive certain things, as you say, bringing your mum's concept of medicine with your father's advanced pharmaceutical concept of medicine, and how is natural grassland and trees and herbs and all of that, how is that healing the body as much as other modalities. And I think you are a shining example of those two hybrids brought together, and your wisdom in biomedics, was it that your training was
biomedical
in?
Science, yeah.
Yeah, so you did have that part of your dad as well, and you did bring those two together. And
Yeah.
as we're evolving in 2024, where we are today, and we are moving into a new age where we are starting to look for alternative opportunities out there that may well be more intuitive with the human condition, possibly.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, in Ghana, in the Ashanti tribe, which is where I'm from, we've got this symbol, this Adinkra symbol called Sankofa, which is, when you translate it, it's really go back to your roots.
Yeah.
And it is relevant in our culture, as in, don't forget where you came from. But
Yes.
if you kind of bring that into medicine, it's let us literally go back to our roots, to the ground, to earth, to what our ancestors were doing, because they weren't stupid. We're here because our
Yes.
ancestors did what
Yes.
they did.
The root medicine, the root
Root
of all
medicine.
cause, all of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go back to that roots. Go back
Yeah.
to using plants to heal ourselves. Go back to, grounding ourselves, being in nature. We are
Yes.
part of the ecosystem.
Make
We're
your own
not.
fire, grow your own vegetables, which I've
That's
started
it.
doing.
That's
And
it.
Mark and I have just started doing a cacao ceremony as well, which is
I've heard about them.
yes, and it's like the
Yeah.
genuine, authentic cacao, and he chops
Yeah.
away, and then we do it in a celebratory form,
Yeah.
and we sit there with our little mugs, and we have peace. And he's helped me to bring peace and tranquility to that 10-15 minute little mini ceremony. And
Yeah.
the cacao itself, the raw cacao, tastes like chocolate. So as a woman, as a chocoholic that I was, it's delicious, but it's
Yeah.
also very healing, because it's cacao is a plant,
Yeah.
which a lot of people, again, don't necessarily know. So the body
No.
starts to detoxify with this,
Yeah.
but it's also, as a woman, like a nice cup of hot chocolate. So go back to your roots and the plant
Absolutely.
roots.
We have to, in some ways, we've kind of isolated ourselves from nature.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's making us sick. If we
Yes.
go back to nature,
Yeah.
commune with nature, and it sounds very hippie, it's not. It is. We as human beings are part of the animal kingdom.
Yes.
And we think we're at the top. We're not at the top. But we have to live with, not overpower,
Yes.
nature.
It's going back to our roots, quite literally. So that's a very good
Yeah.
phrase that you've just
Yeah.
used. Going back to your roots.
Yeah, I do wonder how far we're going to go before we realize that we have to go back.
I think
I
we
mean,
are
with
there. I think we're there, Antoinette.
maybe we are. I don't know. I mean, we've got
I mean, I keep
AI.
electrocuting, so it's like I think I'm there anyway. That's
Yeah,
enough
and
now.
but I think it's interesting, because I think we are awakening to that, but then
Yes.
sometimes I feel like we are so used to the conveniences of that alternative lifestyle, that are we ever going to be able to let go? Or maybe there is a way that we can live in both,
Yes.
kind of merge it, where technology, I don't know, is taking us closer to nature. I mean, I've seen pictures where like whole buildings are covered with ivy, and and maybe that's how we can incorporate nature into our society, and just be a little bit more tolerant of nature in its raw form, and not try and sanitize it for our own convenience, because nature is inconvenient and it's a bit chaotic. And if we try, like, for instance, oh no, these insects, let's get rid of these insects. So you just think, well, you're in their environment, why are you trying to kill them?
So we do need to restore nature get back to nature, get back to our roots, as you quite wisely said. And I hate to have to close this wonderful discussion with you, because there's so much more I want to talk to you about, and perhaps in the future I can bring you back, Antoinette. Honestly, it's been such a pleasure to speak to you today and hear about your personal story and what got you into the osteopathy and the Perrin technique in particular, the treatment for ME in particular, but also the restoration of your own, starting with your own beautiful mother. And how it started, the osteopathy interest, because your mum had the back injury from a car crash, and also the influence of your father that got you into the biomedical research and how you tried that, and then you went into the army and you did that as well. So you're a warrior and a medic and a pioneer and a great spirit, and you've got such a wealth of fantastic qualities. And it has been an absolute pleasure getting to know the you underneath the osteopath and the professional that I've seen in the clinic. What a beautiful spirit you are, and what a wonderful example to everybody of what the future should be, of let's merge all these wonderful modalities together. You've learned this, I've learned this. How can we bring them together? How can we also listen to the patient as well? Because they have something to bring, as you quite rightly said. One is not the same as another. Everybody's different. Let's listen to the emotional, the structural, the physical, and the chemical components that cause sickness in the first place. And then let's listen to pioneers like yourself, and long may you continue in your great work ahead. And honestly, Antoinette, thank you so much for sharing with us today, and I wish you every success ahead, continuing in your great work. And thank you for today. I hope you've enjoyed yourself as well.
I absolutely have. And I am so privileged to treat and to meet so many different characters in my job every day. I'm so lucky to be doing a job that I absolutely love. I love it. I'm so glad that I left everything and, did osteopathy. I mean, it wasn't easy those 5 years, but my goodness, it's absolutely worth it. And it's so rewarding and it's so fulfilling. And I am every day in awe of my ME patients as to how they deal with such adversity and keep going. Honestly, I learn so much from them every day. I really do. And, from people like you, Cathy, my goodness, with everything that you go through. I mean, like I said, I heard your laugh first before I saw your face. From someone who was so ill, you wouldn't think that they would be so happy and so kind of positive and just keep going when you were so ill, Cathy. I mean, it's that in itself is an inspiration.
Oh, bless you, Antoinette. Well, thank you so much. And I'm glad I got sick so I could meet people like yourself and Dr. Perrin and Mark. I'm really glad. I can really truly look back and say it was the worst but the best time of my life. And I would never have had the privilege of meeting somebody as wonderful as you had that not happened. And I can truly say today, thank you so much for inspiring me on my journey and helping me physically and mentally to cope and overcome so much. And it's been an honour speaking to you today. And I can't wait to see you again at the next event. I'm sure there'll be something ahead. And all my love to you. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and thank you for your time today, Antoinette. Thank you for inspiring. Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome, Cathy. Take care.
All the best. Thank you again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.